Good evening, everyone. System Chalk here with the 33rd episode of Book of Hours, our first YouTube series. Certainly not the first time we're playing the game. We're starting to catch up with the Twitch series, but I suspect that will be done before this one is done. But the big news from last week was committing so many skills to the Tree of Wisdoms. In fairness, it was mostly languages, and I'm quite fine with that, if I'm completely honest. But we'll see where the rest of it goes. Now, as always, this is the Monday episode, so it does take me a little while to figure out where I'm at. And then I also have a couple of time-sensitive things today, so I'll probably have to record this one and then hop on to a few other things before I get back to the game. But that doesn't stop us from examining where we are in the session. So we've got a bunch of boxes to open. We have, I would assume that with half a day to go, we must have some kind of project underway, but I actually don't see any countdowns. We are talking with Denzel. Looks like we're actually giving him a tool. So this is bringing him up to 5. Presumably want to bring him up to 6. Well, that's going to make things interesting. Was I giving them the tea then, I guess? I really wish I was paying closer attention to what I was trying to do last week. Okay, well, we'll set that aside. We've got gates flung wide. Ah, yes. Okay, so we're reading a text. Okay, so, and then this book, similarly, we are, oh no, this one, yeah, no, actually it looks like, yeah, it looks like we're actually going pretty hard on getting the various items. Okay, so this does actually raise a question to me as to what I'm trying to do with Denzel, because this seems to be a bit of a weird... It does actually seem to be a bit of a weird setup that I've got with him. What I will do, though, is once once I'm finished with the tool, we'll see where we're at in terms of the kind of conversations and such. I suspect probably what I'm doing is waiting for the memory, maybe. But... Again, I don't watch the episodes before I go through, which is a little bit of a problem because normally I do take notes during this game. But okay, so we are up to 5 in terms of memories. Now, I do note here, so we've got collaboration and we've got a tool. So it would seem to me that we still have a memory available to use, which is likely what I was waiting for. So the Despoiled Laboratory will be good for getting some books. I'm not so sure if that's true with the Shrouded Stair, so I should be a little more reluctant to do that, especially because Reverend Timothy would be a natural candidate for that one. And then I could go for something more ambitious with the Ill-Omened Tower. That would also get me books, incidentally. So let's actually think a bit about where we are with Denzel. So yeah, if I got the memory and then I fed him the tea, we would actually be able to hop up to the Ill-Omened Tower. So what I'm going to do, let's have a conversation with Denzel first to see where we're at with the memories. If we can get something like a foresight out of him, that would be great. And if we can't, then we'll use the tryst at the last minute to get the relevant memory. So, speak with Denzel, he might even reply. Because we're reading a whole lot of texts right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for them to complete before I read the whole text. Like I said, it's always a little bit of an adventure whenever I come back to the game after an extended period away. Okay, few flowers flourish in the depths of winter. Blue Crown is one of those few. So I'm happy to pick that up, although I'd rather not leave it on the bridge. I do need to think of better places to put the flowers, but for now, I think I'm going to settle for putting them on shelves. And pluck the petals of the Lenten Rose. Okay, so Similar story. Pretty poisonous, no true rose. All right, let's see where the timers go. Perfect. All right. He does a lot with silence, this man. Exalt with memory. I can discuss a memory with my assistant. This will use up the memory, but boost the assistant's abilities for the rest of the day. So that brings him up to 7. Actually, sorry, it did occur to me when I said Reverend Timothy was a freebie. Reverend Timothy's a freebie in my other save, so it's less of a priority to deal with him. Yeah. It's actually... I suppose, actually, the Despoiled Laboratory, I shouldn't be aiming for Denzel with this one because I can get Mr. Kill on the job. So yeah, we are going to shoot for the El Omen Tower. Seems to me like I should also be pouring some tea. In fact, we have more than one, so let's serve appropriately. Pour out. Pour it out. Don't let him know it was on the ground. Okay, so we've read Lady Ava's Repose, a meditation on the drowning of Lady Ava de Wolf and her 2 grandchildren, written in the years when the estate was abandoned by Father Theo, once the de Wolf family chaplain, one of the few to remain on the Isle in those desolate years. There are so many stories of her heritage, so many rumors of her persistence. We might easily choose to believe that the grand twins escaped, even that they live yet beyond the sea. Father Theo has come to believe that Ava sought an escape from a family curse, the pale heritage of Haffren, her forebear, or the curse placed upon the line by the cunning man Red William in the time of Hendrik de Wolf. He had begun by believing neither curse was real, but as the book concludes, he decides that he is determined to believe in them, or rather than accept the 3 deaths as a futile tragedy. One does not so easily escape the long necessity of faith, he concludes. So this gives us Rhyme and Remembrance. This is something new for us, I believe. Yep, acquire Rhyme and Remembrance. Use this lesson to acquire a new skill. And the memory from that is Regret. Oh, okay, so I remember Kion at Abydos is a source for Regret, but I don't think I have Regret in the library yet. So this should be Solace, Storm. I actually don't remember this one. I believe this one is Reflection, or the Lantern one. Confounding Parable. This would have to be Impulse. Intuition. Foresight, Satisfaction. Fear. Well, if it's those indignities perpetrated by the deceitful fraternity of obliviates, that would have to be Contradiction. Oh. Maybe this is Regret here. Humors of a Gentleman is Gossip. By their marks ye shall know them, I think, is Pattern, Salt, Earth Sign, and Unknown. Okay, I'm actually going to set this one aside for now. Okay, the Twin Serpent Tantra. Just before the outbreak of the Great War, Alexander Sparrow, almost certainly a pseudonym, published leaflets claiming the influence of snake princes on world affairs. The text, called the Twin Serpent Tantra, was his primary inspiration. The Tantra describes the Great Hooded Princes, a dynasty of unclear origin, engaging in prayers, sacrifices, and poetry in honor of the Key Serpent, the Crossroads Twin, and the Mirror Queen. Nagai encircles, Nagai arises from wounds, Nagai spares those who are already harmed. The Great Hooded Princes are described as having escaped from the history of their death to a history where they yet live. The text claims that there are now 108 of them, but in one of many instances of twinnedness before they crossed from their death chronicle, there were only 54. So that gives us a pattern. At least we know where to place that. 2 edicts liminal. That makes life a little easier for us, although I believe we already have... Oh. Yes, we do. Okay, so this one's going to involve quite a bit of work. Fortunately, we do have Tryst, so we can use that for the upgrade. Alright, memories don't last long outside books, but it's made a difference for the day. So I'm likely not going to need any more memories from Denzil, but I don't think it would hurt for us to finish the... I don't think it would hurt to keep producing them, so I'm going to give him the drink just so we can go a little bit further in the house, and then we'll farm whatever memories we can from him. My preference would definitely be to work out a couple of placements in terms of these. I would suspect out of all of them, On the White is very likely to have a regret, and so I should probably move Lady Ava's Repose over. Alright, another leaf on the Tree of Wisdoms. Rhyme and remembrance: to speak with the dead, to torment the living, to celebrate both. Let's, well, you know what, we can just jump straight into leveling up, so... Edicts Liminal... Put in a pattern. There's always more to learn. Improve the skill to level 2. This will increase its aspects, which will help with crafting and make it suitable for higher branches on the Tree of Wisdoms if you haven't already committed it. So this is maybe another example of one of these situations where, so I don't want to make too much of a thing of this, but the question did come up in the comments in terms of what the overall strategy is for committing to the Tree of Wisdoms. Now, the big thing, I guess, that I want to note here is that a strategy implies a lot more thought in terms of how I'm approaching this than I'm actually applying. So, for myself, there's a couple of kind of key ideas that I've been working with. Number one is that because in my sorry, I'm trying to think of the right way to put it. Like, in my existing playthrough, so the one on Twitch, I mean, I've been pretty strict in terms of not committing skills to the Tree of Wisdoms, and it's not because I think it's a better way of playing, or I don't. It's, you know, there's no real reason behind it other than I can do it. Like, it lets me do something kind of fun that I'm having, that I'm rather enjoying and I like. Now, there are some situations where in this one, so the idea behind this one was I did not want to restrict myself the same way that I am in the other playthrough, but that doesn't mean that I'm indifferent to what happens to the Tree of Wisdoms. And again, this is just more of a preference thing in terms of RPGs. You know, some people, oh dear, sorry, I just got a runtime error, but I think that's just Dropbox. The video should still be good. So, you know, again, like some people will play an RPG and, you know, you don't read the books on the shelves, or maybe you skip over some of the dialogue, or, you know, when you have a character, that character is a combination of stats that, you know, you want to get a good outcome from. All of those are perfectly fine ways to play a role-playing game. I mean, there's, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions, that have been made by making those kinds of experiences for people. But clearly, there are also some people who enjoy, let's say, you know, spending hours on character creation. And they may, in fact, be the sort of person who wants to read all of the texts. and there's place for them as well. And so I kind of like to think I'm somewhere in between the two of those in this situation here, which is I do care quite a bit about what is being described in these various entries, right? Because in the end, this is sort of me making sense of the world, and it's hard for me even playing a character with the artist, which is maybe a little bit less in line with my my own personal beliefs or interests. I mean, again, it's kind of hard to talk about personal beliefs because it's a fictional setting, right? So it's not exactly like I have a lot in common with a Twiceborn either. But yeah, so in this case here, I don't want to commit something that I feel uncomfortable with, and that's just a pure, I'm not really sure I'm quite ready to make a deal with the powers of nowhere, for lack of a better way of putting it. But on the other hand, when I've gotten to a point where I can't quite see myself advancing without either getting very lucky or without putting an undue amount of time into sort of getting the right condition. So like if I have like one book and I would need to wait for a storm to arrive for me to be able to get a chance at reading it, that's obviously going to involve a very, very long wait, and for reasons that are very difficult to justify. Whereas, if I'm sitting on a stack of like, let's say 5 or 6 books, all of which I can achieve with my existing combinations of skills and elements of the soul, well, there's really no reason for me to commit there other than to get another action for the day, because in the end, there are just so many, like there's more actions that I can take than there are elements in the day, even once I commit. So one of the reasons why I held off on some of these things is exactly what's happening with Edict's Liminal now, which is that by waiting to get that up to a 3, I can't remember which one that commits to, actually. It might tell me here. Nyctodromy or Skolakosophy. So this is a perfect example of it, actually, right? Because if I want, I can go even further down Nyctodromy now as a result. Skolakosophy is a little bit harder to say because in the end I'd be moving up to a 2. Now, I do have a card that I could, in fact, put in here. But yeah, especially with Nyctodromy, like if I want, not only can I commit that, but I can actually leapfrog even further into Hushery if I was so inclined. So anyways, just a bit of an example in terms of how I don't, like, the biggest thing on this one is I like to think of it as a pragmatic point of view. It's not going to be one where I say I'm only going to commit under these circumstances, but I am also going to try and create situations in which I'm able to make the most of the cards that I have. And sometimes holding back on commitments when I know that I have some cards that'll allow me to level a few things up, that can that can really push the efficiency a little bit. I'm also going to take a chance here and say that Lady Ava's Repose goes by on the white, because the more I look at it, the more I feel like that's I guess the big thing I'm trying to think of is, like, what else would on the white be? It's really hard to see that as being anything other than the one that I would get from Keonet Abydos. Okay, down to the Grushians. So we're going to keep talking with Denzel. He might even reply. And again, this is really just in case I wind up getting something special for Edict's Liminal. At that point, maybe I would bring back the Tryst or the Shapt. Should have one more text coming up too. All right, this skill is now level 2. Its power aspects have also increased. And here we are, Edge a Conquest. As the sun is coarse, Joel of the Bridge, a retired soldier and sometimes tollkeeper, wrote an epic poem about Alexander's famously inexplicable decision at Issus to withdraw from the war with the Achaemenids and his subsequent return to Macedonia. Alexander meets at Issus with Darius, King of Kings, for 3 days and 3 nights. On the first day, the two men trade threats. On the second, promises. On the third, secrets. Darius tells Alexander something so shattering that he retires to his tent to consider matters of strength and matters of mastery. At the dawn of the 4th day, Alexander announces the sun has his course, upon which he returns, and so do I. He returns to Macedonia, executing 2 of his captains, when they dispute his decision. He brings with him the names of a blind god and a rite of sacred betrayal. 4, Joel opines. Without betrayal, there would be an end to war. So, one of the one of the things that interests me the most about this, and it's probably me not thinking all the way through the lore stuff on Secret Histories, but the one thing is I don't see this discussed that much. Alexandria is kind of an important location in the Secret History setting, I think would be fair to say. I don't know. So, like, one of the things here is that I don't know about the, I think it's 9 libraries of the Watchman's Tree. I think I've said 7 at some point. I'm obviously I'm misspeaking in these cases. It's definitely 9 libraries of the Watchman's Tree. And I believe one of those is the Invisible Serapeum. I think it's described as such in the Exile DLC, although I wouldn't be surprised if that also had a role to play in The Lady Afterwards, which is the sort of tabletop slash night, mystery murder night. I think it's kind of intended to be a one-off, so I want to be careful when I say that it's like the tabletop, because it is a tabletop game, but I don't want to suggest that it's like a source book for all things Secret Histories. I think it's intended to be sort of a unique scenario that you run through. In any case, now and I will also admit I've not like sat down and meditated on the the conquest of Alexander all of that much, but here are a few things that I'm sort of working with from recollection and just my general understanding of the setting. So, Alexandria, as we know it, is one of multiple Alexandrias founded, but it also, like, the one that we think of is this city that once Alexander left, there's a lot of, administration, lots of development that went into it, and it became sort of one of the largest cities and this great sort of city with a great flourishing culture there. So you have, Ptolemy, one of Alexander's generals. I believe he took Alexander's body and interned it there, counter to Alexander's wishes, but I think this has something to do with sort of the authority and sort of his claim to power. But probably a little bit more interesting is when you think of some of the different names that come up. So, you have figures like Euclid and his very famous statement to Ptolemy, there's no royal road to geometry, so it does not matter if you're a king or a pauper, you have to... This is his reply to Ptolemy asking if there's an easier way to learn geometry, and the answer is no. Everybody has to... This is maybe something that would appeal to... scholars of the arcane arts. Everybody has to put the effort in. Everybody has to do the work to be able to understand these things. But also later on, and I mean, a figure that I keep referring to, Plotinus, was also active in Alexandria. You have Hypatia. Of course, that is itself its own interesting story, because there you also have the tensions between Neoplatonism and the increasingly powerful Christianity, and sort of this fighting between old beliefs and this new, and what would ultimately become the dominant religious belief. So a really active place. And I mean, Alexandria itself is fascinating because, of course, all of the different cultures running around it. So it's a great setting if you want to tell some sort of a story on its own. Very important place in antiquity. There's not just the library and the museum. There's the Serapeum, and then, of course, again, there's the Invisible Serapeum. Now, there's a few things that I'm not clear about. So I don't know if the libraries of the Watchman's Tree are like Traowen or Vienna, which sort of exist and have the same name in multiple histories. That's one point of interest for me. And the reason why that's important is because if this is in fact the way that it works with the libraries, so far as I can tell, the Battle of Issus predates Alexander's, the founding of Alexandria. Even if Alexander wasn't necessarily responsible for the shape that the city would take, the events that lead to his founding of Alexandria don't necessarily follow if after meeting Darius he sort of turns around and goes home. So this is one of these interesting, like this is where sort of the contradictions in secret histories become important, because it is easy to imagine that not necessarily all of the libraries exist in all of the histories, but there may be some implications if that is the case. It may be that Alexandria exists under other circumstances in the secret history setting. It may be that the invisible Serapeum exists either in a different city or under different circumstances. But this is the one thing, is that I haven't actually seen a whole lot. And again, it may just be that Alexandria isn't as important in the setting as I think it is. But this is one thing that I noticed doesn't seem to come up a whole lot, which is this question of, given what seems to be a degree of importance of Alexandria just in terms of other things that are relevant to the secret history setting, and given that the founding of the city doesn't happen the way that we commonly understand it, what does this mean in terms of all of these other fairly important places? I mean, there's also the other questions in terms of like, well, if you don't have Alexander, then how does, X, Y, and Z happen? I mean, that I think I can kind of wrap my head around a little bit more, just because that's sort of that's the thing you do with alternative histories and so on, right? But I suppose the biggest thing is, because there are fairly specific locations that are kind of important in terms of the overall setting, I am rather curious what this specific choice of Alexander's means when it comes to some of these other important settings and events in the setting. And to be honest, like, I haven't thought of it enough to be able to figure it out. But the main points that I kind of am interested in here is, okay, given the events described in As the Sun Is Course, although obviously this is one of several cases where they refer to Alexander's choice. Given what's described here, what does this mean? Oh, that's a bit of a shame. What does this mean in terms of the invisible Serapeum, and specifically the founding of Alexandria itself? So the reason I say this is a shame is, clearly we took the time to commit Sickle and Eclipse, but we've got 2 more levels we can put into this. Now, I do have a bit of a choice to make here. I can continue to level up Sickle and Eclipse, knowing that it's not going to be able to be committed further down the Tree of Wisdoms, or I can try and put it towards something else. I think in this case here, because I'm not that big on going further down Nyctodromy, like I already have other options available to me, I'll probably put the points into Sickle and Eclipse. But maybe I'll hold off on the choice for a bit. Anyway, sorry to take so much time on that. I hope other people find that interesting. Like, Alexandria, in terms of an overall topic, is fascinating. Like, it's one that if you've not read about it, it is absolutely worth your time. And again, whether you consider the scholars that either were born there or moved there to sort of practice, or just kind of all of these different groups and all the sort of districts, it's a really, really it's a place with a very rich history. And there's also little details too. Like, sometimes the other thing that can be interesting about Alexandria is maybe the things that people assume are true about it, but aren't actually a thing. So what I'm specifically thinking of is that if you think of the idea of like the destruction of the Library of Alexandria, so far as I can tell, that's not really an event. There are cases where the library was damaged. I actually think Caesar might have set it on fire by mistake at some point. But the idea that there is a singular event in which the library was destroyed, as far as I can tell, that isn't really the case. It's more sort of this long decline, which I don't find it interesting in the sense that I like to hear about libraries, going from a peak and declining. But rather it's just interesting that there is this perception, or seems to be at least this perception, counter to what actually seems to have happened. So the stairway has been chained off. Sorry, the Ill Omen Tower. The stairway has been chained off, more than chained off. The whole thing is wrapped or swathed in chains. Authoritative sigils forbid entry. So I do want to read the uncatalogued book. I'll worry about Edict's Liminal first. I'm going to need to make some decisions about Sickle and Eclipse. I think I'm probably going to accept... I'm probably just going to move it up to level 4 the more I think about it. So I think most of tomorrow is going to be spent on leveling up, although I should maybe think about some of the other books I have available. So the Leonine Tantra is probably one I can read. Yep. Seven Shards will be more difficult. Annals of St. Brendan's is a piece of cake. Yeah, we'll see about some of the rest of them, but maybe I'll take some time to catalog the books, because even if they're solar, they are they're worth taking the time with. Okay. So 3 solar books, more of the tea. The church tower. The bells in this tower rang every Sunday, even in Solomon Husher's time, until Thirza Blake finally cancelled services so she could save money by sacking the priest. This brought a deputation of angry locals from Brankrug village, where there was a fearful superstition that when the bells of Brankrug fell silent, the bells of Yiz would be heard. So we've got a stop clock, 10 forge. We've got the glaring room, which is 10 heart, 10 lantern, or 10 winter. And the echoing chamber, which is 9 lantern, 9 moon, or 9 winter. Then there's the shrouded stair, 6 edge, 6 forge, 6 knock, or 6 lantern. And the veiled chamber, 9 heart, 9 lantern, 9 moon, or 9 winter. The winter ones are almost certainly going to be used by Mr. Kill. But yeah, I think probably tomorrow's work... I do at some point want to open up the Despoiled Laboratory, but I just have... The opportunities to be able to read books and get so many other things done is kind of taking priority. And one big reason for that is that being able to sort of catalog and read, get and catalog the books, I'm just sort of able to direct... I'm able to get something more directly from that. So, okay, Oriflammes. Oriflammes established 1776, Sense Signs Sciences. Dear librarian, we would like to offer you this opportunity to purchase the White Book of Brittany. That's a 10 winter text. Iron and Tin Spintria. So I would need to give up all of my tally. It's tempting because it's the sort of stretch target that I'd normally like to pick up. I think it's fairly expensive given that I also would like to learn some languages. So I think I'm going to decline on this particular one. And we are at time. So thank you everybody for watching. You can all sit down and meditate on Alexandria and Alexander's decision to turn around. I need to see if I can... Actually, you know what? I've probably already messed up my opportunity to do the time-sensitive thing. But one way or the other, thank you very much for watching. There will be no episode for Tuesday as usual, but I will be back on Wednesday for more Book of Hours. Until then, take care.